Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another At America TV event with me, Jasmine. I hope you all are doing well. So for those of you joining us for the first time, At America is the U.S. Embassy's American Center, and our mission is to provide a space for young Indonesians to learn more about the United States. We have temporarily moved to a digital platform so you can still enjoy all of our events at home. So for this evening, we will be discussing Knowledge at America, technology, and climate change. But before we begin, I would like to share with you that At America is having a giveaway as part of our 10th anniversary celebration and also celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month. We're inviting you guys to participate so you don't miss out on a chance to receive a pair of Apple AirPods. Now, how can you guys join? Stay tuned until the end of the program because that's when I'll be sharing with you how to do so. And also, before we begin tonight's event, in all of At America's events, I would like to share with you our social media quiz question for this evening. So tonight's question is, true or false, coal is used for reusable energy? So is it true or false that coal is used for reusable energy? You can participate in our social media quiz by commenting on our social media platform on our Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or Instagram. And for those of you who got the answer correctly, you will get a live shout out from us at the end of the program. All right, before we begin tonight's event, I would like to invite for the opening remarks, Ibu Allison Belling, Science and Technology Officer, ESTH, U.S. Embassy, Jakarta.
Selamat malam semuanya di Indonesia dan selamat pagi semuanya di Amerika Serikat. Saya senang sekali memberikan kata sambutan hari ini. Many thanks to Knowledge at America for the invitation to take part and give a few opening remarks this evening. It's a great honor to set the stage for today's speakers, Dr. Holly Buck and Dr. Eko Prasetyo Kuncoro, and today's moderator, Dr. Puji Rianti, for their important conversation on technology and climate change. Bold action to tackle the climate crisis is more urgent than ever. This is a critical year in a decisive decade. Science, especially the latest Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report, released in August, tells us that we must dramatically scale up our efforts between now and 2030 if we are to meet the global goal of limiting warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. The record heat, floods, storms, and wildfires devastating communities in Indonesia, the United States, and around the world demonstrate just how much danger we face. Last week, for example, Hurricane Ida pummeled the southeastern United States. And these kinds of extreme weather events will become more frequent and more severe. So investing in stronger climate action now, including new inventions and innovation in climate technology, will protect future generations from far worse impacts. The United States is fully committed to doing its part to tackle the climate crisis. President Biden has returned the United States to the Paris Agreement and committed to reduce U.S. emissions to 50 to 52% below 2005 levels in 2030. Former Senator and Secretary of State John Kerry has been appointed as a special presidential envoy for climate change. And he has been very busy engaging with government, business, civil society, and youth leaders around the world. Indonesia is a significant priority for President Biden and Special Presidential Envoy Kerry. Indonesia will be critical to achieve the necessary emissions reductions to get to global net zero emissions by 2050. And together, our two countries have launched a productive bilateral climate policy framework. Robust, reliable scientific data, cutting-edge technology, and the ability to cooperate openly in research and innovation partnerships are critical to our efforts. President Biden hosted a leaders' summit on climate in April. And at that summit, he said, as we transition to a clean energy future, we must ensure that workers who have thrived in yesterday's and today's industries have as bright a tomorrow in the new industries. At that same event, U.S. Secretary for Energy Jennifer Granholm said that clean technology is our generation's moonshot, and our government will announce new goals for domestic and international partnerships in leapfrogging to next generation technologies. Looking ahead, the 26th annual UN Climate Conference this November in Glasgow is a pivotal moment. The commitments all countries bring to Glasgow will determine whether we can avoid the most dangerous consequences of climate change. We as the United States come to these international discussions humbly, but with an urgency to act now and together. Thank you so much for tuning in today and sharing your passion about and dedication to learning more about the connections between climate change and technology. This evening's speakers will share their expertise and insights, and it's time to turn it over to them. Terima kasih sekali lagi.
Thank you so much, Ibu Allison, for the warm welcome. And now I would like to invite for our moderator for this evening, please give a warm welcome for Ibu Dr. Puji Rianti, Assistant Professor, Department Biology at IPB University, mentor at Climate Reality Indonesia.
Hello. Thank you, Jasmine, for the introduction. Hello, everybody. I am Puji, and I will be your moderator in this event. Yeah. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for everyone, wherever you are right now. Hope you are all in good condition and are ready to participate in the event. Thank you for joining us in Knowledge at America. We will share information and knowledge around technology and climate change with two of our great experts this evening, Dr. Holly Jane Buck from University at Buffalo, New York, and Dr. Eko Prasetyo Kuncoro from Universitas Airlangga. If you have any questions to the speaker, please chat us in the chat box, or you can also comment through All at America social media platform where you are watching us right now. So, are you ready? So maybe for all of you who are in this Zoom, you can give us the reaction, yeah? If you are ready to join and have a discussion, yeah, with us tonight. Okay, so first of all, we will have Dr. Holly Jane Buck. She is a postdoctoral research fellow at UCLA's Institute of the Environment and Sustainability. Dr. Buck are interested in how communities can be involved in the design of emerging environmental technologies. She's also worked at the interface of environmental sociology, international development, and science and technology studies. Her diverse research interests include agroecology and carbon farming, new energy technologies, artificial intelligence, and the restoration of California's Salton Sea. At the present, she is studying how technologies to remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere might affect landscape in the central US, and how policy for scaling up carbon dioxide removal can be designed for community benefit. Her book, After Geoengineering, Climate Tragedy, Repair and Restoration, examines best case scenarios on several aspects of climate engineering, including humanitarian and development approaches to geoengineering, gender consideration, and human rights issues. Prior to her academic life, she worked as a foreign affairs analyst, a geospatial technician for a remote sensing company, and a creative writing teacher. Wow. She holds a doctorate in development sociology from Cornell University and a master science in human ecology from Lund University, Sweden. So please give applause and a warm welcome to Dr. Buck. Zoom screen is yours.
Thank you so much for that welcome. I'm so glad to be here tonight, this morning. And I'll start my presentation. Technology and climate change. So I'm actually working as a professor at the University at Buffalo in New York State. This is our solar farm, which has just been built. Many universities here are trying to figure out how they could switch to renewable energy. So it's a really exciting time to be working in this field. I'll start out by a few more words about climate change and the Biden administration. As was just discussed, I'm really happy that we've rejoined the Paris Agreement this past February. The administration is also having a strong focus on infrastructure and aiming to spend $2 trillion over the next few years on clean energy. So in the US, like many countries, there's a lot of political opinions about what can be done on climate change, but most people agree that we need to build clean energy and we need to update also our infrastructure. So those are moving forward together. And there's also an initiative called 30 by 30, which is a goal to conserve 30% of land and water by the year 2030. Interior Secretary Deb Haaland, she's our first Indigenous cabinet member. She's working on that initiative with the Department of Interior. And finally, we have the goal of being net zero by 2050. So what is net zero? Net zero implies some amount of positive emissions, which is balanced by negative emissions. So how do you get negative emissions? You could have negative emissions by removing carbon from the atmosphere, which I'll talk about in a minute. But this sort of graph, so on one axis, you have a time up to 100. On the other axis, you have the emissions of carbon dioxide. So right now, you can see that those are very high, up towards getting towards 35 billion tons of CO2. If you include other greenhouse gases, the emissions are larger. So first we have to reduce our emissions right away. And so these are measured in billions of tons of CO2. So towards 35 billion tons, that's really a huge volume of carbon that's going into the atmosphere. So priority number one is to reduce that using everything we can to cut emissions. And then on top of that, we also have to find some ways to remove some of the carbon that's actually already there in the atmosphere. So I'll talk through that a bit more. But I just want to mention that all around the world, countries as well as cities and companies are making these net zero targets because it's in line with what the science says we need to do to keep warming to well below 2 degrees or even 1.5 degrees Celsius. And so you can see here in green are countries that have agreed to a net zero target in law. In orange are countries that have them in a policy document. And then red is also countries which are discussing these targets as their goal in line with the science. So it's really a global movement that's beginning. Then how do we get there? That's obviously the challenge that we're talking about, but you can think about 6 main tasks: electrify everything, build green buildings, change how we move around, clean up our industrial processes, build cleaner factories that work a bit differently, farm in different ways, and remove carbon from the atmosphere. And that's not everything, but those are the main things. And if you look at this graph, you can see where these greenhouse gas emissions are coming from. Most from energy, including energy for industry and buildings, transportation, some just process emissions from industry, about 5%, and about 18% from agriculture, from land use change, so clearing land in ways that releases carbon to the atmosphere, just from the soils themselves, from agricultural processes. So a lot of different things to work on in that picture. But electrify everything is sometimes considered the first step, because if we clean up the power system, that will also clean up other things. So a lot of job opportunities here. I think you may be familiar with hydropower, wind and solar. Solar power could generate between 300,000 and 515,000 new jobs in Indonesia, according to the World Bank. There's also geothermal energy. This is a picture of one geothermal plant in Indonesia. So a lot of options here, depending on where you are in the world. But we've already seen a lot of clean energy build out because governments have supported these technologies through innovation policies, through subsidies in some cases. So first, electrify everything. People have questions about, can we really do everything with renewable energy? So what if the sun isn't shining and the wind doesn't blow? What happens to your energy? There's a lot of solutions that we're figuring out. One thing is just building more transmission lines to have a bigger network. So if it's not sunny in one place, you can move electricity from the place where it is sunny. Also thinking about new battery storage, that's really important. Also hydrogen, or so-called green hydrogen, being produced with electricity. Hydrogen could be used as an energy storage medium, as a fuel. And then there's a big discussion about putting carbon capture equipment on power plants that are produced, fueled by natural gas. So that's another way to clean up those plants in this short time frame that we're trying to deal with this problem. Moving to buildings, in the US, our challenge is to get rid of gas as a source for heating buildings and install electric heat pumps. And so this is going to require replacing the furnaces in many houses. But there's also ways to also decrease the use of each house with smart metering technology. So you could, right now in your typical house, you have a thermostat and you set what temperature you want it to. In the future, that thermostat could adjust to your patterns of life, as well as perhaps the power company itself could adjust your thermostat if there's extreme demand on the system. So these are already out there, but more people need to have them, and we need to put them into all the new houses that we're building. A big opportunity in Indonesia and around the world where there's going to be more construction of new buildings is simply to build them in greener ways. And then transportation is also a big challenge in the US. It's about 30%, 29% of total emissions. But we have increasingly good options around electric vehicles. Both cars and motorcycles are something that could be electric. The challenge here is that it can cost a lot upfront to have that. So in the US, some policies have made it more affordable for people to buy electric vehicles. For example, I was able to buy a vehicle that you can either drive using gasoline or you can plug it in, a hybrid plug-in, because it was the same price as a new vehicle, because I was living in the state of California, which gives some cash for you to buy such a car, as well as the federal level policy makes it cheaper for you to buy a car. So that starts up at the beginning when companies are rolling out these new models and they want consumers to try them. Eventually that support will fade away. But right now, it's really important for us to adopt these. But then we also need a public charging infrastructure for this. So I wasn't living in a house which had a garage. I just parked my car on the street and I had no way to plug it in. So I would go to the public library because they would have a charging station. So those are some of the challenges we're working on here in the US as we think about infrastructures. How can we build places for people to plug these in? And one big criticism of this approach is that we have a lot of people who can't afford a new car, right? So, I mean, there's a policy challenge to equalize this, but you know, we can better support mass transit, walking, new bicycle lanes, also zero carbon, low carbon fuels. When it becomes really technically challenging is with sustainable aviation and sustainable shipping. And so those together contribute probably about 5% of world emissions. And those are some of the things that are going to be the most challenging to clean up. Also, new factories that work in cleaner ways. Factories could be, in some cases, powered by electricity. There's some new designs, but it's challenging because producing, you know, something like steel requires very high temperature heat. So there's discussion about green hydrogen, and also equipping these factories with carbon capture equipment that can clean the carbon out, well, stop it from going into the atmosphere. Then it needs to be transported somewhere. So we have many thousands of miles of carbon dioxide pipelines in the US, but there's a discussion of building more of these pipelines so that the carbon can be transported from factories all over to places where it can be injected underground. So it can be stored thousands of feet in rock formations under the surface of the earth. And there's a discussion of how much of that we should be investing in right now. Agriculture, another very important area for new technologies. One thing I'm the most excited about right now are different companies that are working on sustainable fertilizer. So fertilizer is made from fossil fuels generally, and requires a lot of energy. But there's new discussions about startups who are investing in using microbes to fix nitrogen, using renewable power. Also, there's another approach, feed cows different things. This is a challenge because cows produce a lot of methane, but with seaweed and other types of food, they can actually emit less. Finally, there's a discussion about, can we shift from eating animals to plant-based or cellular meat that is grown in a laboratory? So we have some startups working on all of those things, and they're at different scales of when they might be mature technologies. Finally, the last thing I'll mention is about ways to remove carbon from the atmosphere. So if we could remove some amount of carbon, that could compensate for emissions from aviation or heavy industry or fertilizer, some things that we don't know how to decarbonize yet, that we probably will by the end of the century. But if we want to get to net zero by 2050, which we should, we would need to compensate for some amount of those emissions to continue and remove carbon. So how do we remove carbon? There's biological methods that can use forests and soils to take up some of the excess carbon. There's also bioenergy with carbon capture and storage. So harvesting plants that grow quickly, burning them to make energy and capturing the carbon from that process, and again, piping it underground. But there's also new technology that lets people capture carbon directly from the atmosphere. So this picture is a rendering of a direct air capture plant. There's some of these operational in Switzerland and Iceland at a small scale. One of the larger versions is planned to be built in Texas in the US within a few years. And so this technology uses chemicals to capture carbon from the atmosphere. Again, then it needs to be transported and stored underground. So these require a lot of expertise. They require technical expertise in drilling in the subsurface. They require a lot of manufacturing. They require a lot of energy, and they're very expensive. at present. So this isn't some magic solution for all of climate change. This is possibly a solution for the last bit of this after we figure out how to do all of the things that I just discussed about farming differently, moving around differently, electrifying everything. But these are things that we do need to invest in right now because we've really run out of time to address climate change. And so when people talk about removing carbon for net zero, that can compensate for some amount of continued CO2 emissions. It can also compensate for emissions of other greenhouse gases like methane or nitrous oxide. And it could also compensate for historical emissions. So now it's possible to think about, can we clean up emissions from the year 1850 or 1900, the CO2 that's in the atmosphere for a long time? Can we now clean it up? And some companies have targets like this. So Microsoft wants to be carbon negative by 2030, but they also want to remove their historical emissions by 2050. So they were founded in the 1970s. They want to take responsibility for all of those emissions going back to the 1970s and remove them from the atmosphere. And they're figuring out what other companies they can invest in to support that goal, both with bioenergy and carbon capture and storage. Also looking at forest offsets, which aren't as permanent as some of these geologic techniques. So they're putting some billions into this. So are Amazon, Facebook, a lot of these large tech companies are interested in thinking about this problem. And so there's a lot of opportunities in what's called climate tech. This used to be called clean tech maybe 10 years ago, but now people are thinking about it as climate tech. So it's not just about energy, but it's about, fixing the nitrogen challenge and these other aspects too. And investors want to fund these companies. There's been a lot of venture capital going into the space, going up towards 20 billion, so much more than a few years ago. So investors in Silicon Valley are figuring out which companies to bet on, which companies seem like they have promise. But the message I want to leave you with is that while people are really excited about these technologies, it can't mature on its own because we have to build so much stuff that the private sector can't really carry this on its own. It really needs the support of policy. And for us to have policy about it, it needs the support of civil society, of people like you and me, demanding these two new technologies, being willing to support them, also being interested in innovating here. So in terms of what you and I and all of us can do, there are individual actions that make some difference. In the US particularly, many of us like me can think about how we can fly less. We can think about switching over to other forms of transport or retrofitting our houses. But really, to fix this global problem, we have to change the social structures to give people more options for transportation, heating, and cooling. It's not just the individual, it's really transforming all of society. So, we can support decarbonization policies, and we can also become a climate tech innovator ourselves. If you're interested in working in this area, I encourage you to learn about some of the startups out there. It's a very exciting time to be thinking about this. There's going to be a lot of opportunities. Even though it's a terrible challenge, this is like our moment to do something about it. So thank you so much. I look forward to the discussion.
Okay, thank you so much for your great presentation, Dr. Bak. It was really fruitful and give us so much insight. You can also give reaction, people. Yeah, please give reaction. Applause, yeah, for Dr. Bak. Okay, next we carry on, to our next presenter, which is also very special. Dr. Eko Prasetyo Kuncoro from Universitas Airlangga. Dr. Kuncoro received his bachelor degree in engineering physics from the Institute Teknologi 10 November Indonesia in 1999. He received his master degrees in the Industrial Process Engineering, Université de Technologie de Compiègne, France in 2000. And he also received his doctoral degree in Environmental Science and Engineering from the École Nationale Supérieure des Mines, the Saint-Étienne Université Jean Monnet, the Saint-Étienne, France in 2005. Wow, that is really difficult. Forgive my France. Okay. And since 2008, he has worked in the Environmental Science and Technology Department, Universitas Erlangga, as lecturer. And from 2016 to present, he has been the head of the Environmental Engineering Department, Universitas Erlangga. So his research interests include wastewater treatment, air pollution, sustainable material and energy, and also industrial energy, ecology. Yeah, and this evening he will share about climate change mitigation, decarbonization technology, and its potential application in Indonesia. Dr. Kuncoro will speak or will present in both language, yeah, mix a bit between Bahasa Indonesia and English. So hopefully it can also approach, yeah, all of you better. Okay, so please give applause and warm welcome to Dr. Kuncoro. Zoom screen is yours.
Terima kasih kepada Ibu Dr. Puji Rianti. Selamat malam, good evening, good morning in America. Today, this evening, I will present the climate change mitigation, decarbonization technology, and its potential application in Indonesia. In this occasion, I will speak in 2 languages, Indonesian language and also a little bit in English. I hope it will make you more get understanding in this interesting topic. Jadi saya kira pada semua peserta atau audiens di kegiatan pada malam ini sudah sangat familiar dengan perubahan iklim, kemudian dengan pemanasan global, kemudian dengan mitigasi. Nah, pada hari ini kita akan mencoba membahas mitigasi dari perubahan iklim, tentu saja secara global dan juga tapi kita berikan contoh-contoh di Indonesia. Nah, di sini untuk mitigasi dari perubahan iklim, salah satu jalur cepat yang ingin dilakukan untuk mencapai tadi net zero emission atau karbon netral itu adalah teknologi dekarbonisasi. Namanya saja dekarbonisasi berarti kita mengurangi karbon dan juga potensi aplikasinya di Indonesia.
Dr. Kuncoro, probably you can full screen. Sorry.
This one. Okay. Nah, pada kesempatan ini saya akan menyampaikan tentang apa sih yang dimaksud dengan pemanasan global, kemudian apa yang dimaksud dengan perubahan iklim, apa hubungan antara pemanasan global dan perubahan iklim, kemudian saya akan mencoba membahas tentang mitigasi dari perubahan iklim di Indonesia, kemudian dekarbonisasi teknologi dekarbonisasi, dan juga potensi aplikasi yang potensial di Indonesia. Nah, ini adalah pemanasan global. Kalau kita bicara tentang pemanasan global, maka kita paling mudahnya adalah mengasosiasikannya dengan kenaikan dari suhu di bumi, suhu di permukaan bumi, di daratan, di lautan, dan juga di atmosfer bagian bawah. Nah, bagaimana sih kenaikan temperatur ini dari waktu ke waktu? Nah, coba kita lihat di sini ada grafik yang dikeluarkan oleh IPCC. Nah, dari tahun 1850 sampai 2020. Nah, kita lihat ternyata temperatur yang teramati itu mengalami kenaikan. Nah, ini kenaikannya sampai mendekati 1,5. Ini padahal kalau 1,5 sangat tidak menguntungkan bagi kehidupan di permukaan bumi. Apalagi lebih dari itu. Makanya ada Paris Agreement itu menahan supaya kenaikan dari temperatur bumi ini tidak melebihi 1,5 derajat Celcius. Lebih dari itu nanti akan kita lihat apa saja yang dapat terjadi. Jadi intinya adalah naik terus. Naik terusnya ini ada kaitannya dengan pertumbuhan jumlah penduduk, berkaitan dengan kebutuhan yang meningkat, sehingga ada kegiatan-kegiatan. Nah, kegiatan-kegiatan itu memanfaatkan sumber daya alam, ya, dalam hal ini memakai material, energi lain yang melepaskan apa yang disebut dengan gas rumah kaca. Salah satu adalah karbon dioksida yang berkontribusi terhadap pemanasan global. Nah, ini adalah pemanasan global itu terjadi karena efek rumah kaca. Efek rumah kaca. Efek rumah kaca. Kalau para peserta ini sudah tahu rumah kaca, ya paling gampang ya bayangkanlah rumah yang dari kaca, jadi dia di dalamnya itu panas, menahan panas, hangat. Hangat karena ada kacanya. Nah, kacanya itu di sini adalah gas rumah kaca. Gas rumah kaca itulah yang menahan panas dari energi yang dipancarkan dari bumi ke atmosfer. Sebagian dia terlepas ke atmosfer, sebagian dia ditahan dan dikembalikan ke bumi. Nah, kalau produksi gas rumah kacanya semakin banyak, bertambah terus-menerus, nah, bumi akan menjadi semakin panas. Makanya harus dikurangi nih gas rumah kacanya. Sebenarnya yang terjadi pada pemanasan global ini adalah ketidakseimbangan. Makanya tadi sudah diterangkan, explained by Dr. Holibak, the concept of net zero emission. Net zero emission, the balance between positive emission and negative emission. Jadi kalau konsep itu dipakai, ya diharapkan akan terjadi karbon netral. Nah, di Indonesia greenhouse gas emission, according to UN Environmental Program, the major source of greenhouse gas emission is from fossil fuel. Ini dapat kita lihat di oranye ini paling banyak kontribusi dari bahan bakar berbasis fosil. Kemudian ada land use change juga contributes also to greenhouse gases emission. Misalkan deforestation, nah itu ada pembakaran, nah itu yang melepaskan gas CO2. Nah, gas-gas yang lain yang masuk dalam gas rumah kaca adalah metan, nitrous oxide, kemudian fluorinated gases. Nah, dari data yang ada, ini data tahun 2016, tapi masih cukup relevan. Ternyata sumber dari gas rumah kaca itu yang terbesar, the most important I think is energy sector, more than 70%. Kemudian followed by agriculture, forestry and land uses is around 18. After that, industry and waste. Untuk energinya ini ada kategorinya in industrial processes, in transport, and also in energy use in building. Tapi tetap ini paling besar ternyata di industri. Nah, kalau kita melihat data seperti ini untuk menyelesaikan masalah pemanasan global, masalah emisi karbonnya, kita lihat sumbernya ternyata akar masalahnya adalah ini paling banyak di energi. Maka energi ini yang kita prioritaskan, kita berikan prioritas. Greenhouse gases emission reduction, the priority is given to energy sector. Bukan berarti yang lain diabaikan, bukan ya, tapi yang paling besar dulu yang kita selesaikan. Nah, ini adalah climate change. Climate change ini is catastrophe to the environment. Ini dapat kita lihat. Climate change sendiri adalah perubahan dari iklim yang dapat diamati dalam waktu dekade, minimum beberapa dekade. Ini dapat kita lihat ada ini, glacier yang meleleh, kemudian ada typhoon, ada siklon, macam-macam. Kemudian ada kebakaran hutan, ada kekeringan, naikkan temperatur. Kemudian juga ada hujan yang berlebih. Ada yang beberapa waktu lalu lagi heboh adalah Jakarta predicted will be sink, karena tenggelam. Nah, ini masuk akal juga. Nah, ini jadi perubahan iklim itu ditandai antara lain adalah ada temperatur increase, sea level rise. Nah, sea level rise ini yang menyebabkan Jakarta will be sink. Prediction. It's not so sure, but we must take it for consideration. Kemudian sea wave more than 1,5 meter. Kemudian rice production decrease di beberapa tempat. Nah, ini adalah pengertian dari climate change mitigation. Climate change mitigation is any action carried out to eliminate, to reduce the long-term risk and hazard of climate change to human life. Menurut Kabani, menurut IPCC, climate change mitigation is anthropogenic intervention to reduce the source or enhance the sinks of greenhouse gases. Intinya adalah apapun yang dilakukan untuk mengeliminasi atau mengurangi ini dampak dari pemanasan global, perubahan iklim. Nah, bagaimana dengan Indonesia? Indonesia berkomitmen untuk ini ya, menurunkan emisi karbon 2030 31%, 2050 kalau bisa 0, paling cepat 2070 itu yang ditargetkan. Ini banyak apa yang dicanangkan oleh pemerintah melalui berbagai macam kebijakan. Ada fiscal policy, ada renewable energy, terutama banyak tentang energi, electricity. Saya banyak membahas tentang energi. Kemudian juga ada proper. Proper ini menurut peraturan yang terbaru itu untuk industri-industri yang besar itu diwajibkan. Di sini proper ini sangat penting karena di situ ada juga dimasukkan life cycle assessment. Life cycle assessment itu akan quantify the impact of processes to the environment. Di sana akan dilihat ada hotspot yang punya kontribusi to the environment, and then we can give the recommendation how to tackle the impact, to reduce the impact. Ya. Nah, decarbonisation teknologi ini yang saya akan sampaikan. Jadi di sini beberapa yang saya bahas, sebetulnya untuk decarbonisation teknologi ini banyak sekali sektor-sektor, tapi saya membatasi pada energi, transport, agriculture, dan waste yang paling mudah untuk kita lihat ya. Untuk energi ini yang dapat dilakukan adalah pemanfaatan renewable energy, electrification, fossil fuel decline, kemudian clean fuels. Renewable energy banyak ya, ada yang dari biomass. Electrification yang dimaksudnya adalah direct electrification, misalkan dengan solar cell yang relatif dia tidak ada emisi karbon, relatif ya saya katakan ya. Kemudian fossil fuel decline tahun 2050, ini beberapa pembangkit listrik tenaga uap, coal power plant will be closed, shutdown 2050. Kemudian clean fuels ini menggunakan antara lain biofuels. Transport ini didorong penggunaan clean energy seperti adanya hybrid, kemudian electric vehicle, dan juga ini penting model shift to public transport. Kemudian agriculture, kita mencoba ini ada good agriculture practices. Kemudian dari waste, ini greenhouse gases capture, waste to energy. Untuk waste ini beberapa memang sangat, yang terutama dari organic, from organic, has potential to release greenhouse gases such as methane. Ya. Ini kalau kita bisa capture, ini is good. Nah, ini contoh-contoh ya untuk sektor energi, solar energy. Indonesia terletak di daerah di mana dia banyak mendapatkan radiasi matahari. Jadi sepanjang tahun relatively constant solar irradiation in Indonesia. The average annual energy received varies between 1.400 sampai 2.200 kilowatt hour per meter persegi. Ini cukup besar. Ini beberapa daerah yang berwarna kuning potensial, tapi yang cukup potensialnya ada agak warna merah-merah. Ini adalah yang potensial, ini residensial rooftop solar PV. Ini prosesnya adalah panel surya mengubah radiasi matahari menjadi energi listrik, kemudian ada konverter, kemudian dihasilkan listrik dan langsung bisa dipakai. Kalau lebih dia bisa disalurkan ke yang lain. Ini cukup menarik, bahan-bahannya dari silikon kristal ataupun jenis-jenis material yang lain yang sudah dikembangkan, misalkan ada perovskitnya ini. Ini yang visible dikerjakan lah. Kemudian ini juga floating photovoltaik. Ini kalau tadi dipasang di rumah, kalau ini dipasang di air ya. Di air maksudnya diletakkan di air. Misalkan di sini ada danau, ada dam, bendungan ya. Kemudian estuari ataupun bahkan di laut. Ini mengapung gitu ya, mengapung. Ini cukup menarik karena dia dapat menyebabkan shadow ya, the shade untuk aquatic environment below. Prevent evaporation dan juga increasing water quality. Water quality kok increase, kenapa? Karena ada algae yang tumbuh di situ dan dia produce oksigen. Ini geothermal energy, ini contoh di Indonesia. Pembangkit listrik tenaga ini panas bumi di Ulumbu, Flores. Nah, ini geothermal power plants bekerjanya bagaimana? Sebetulnya dia adalah seperti ini ya, jadi hot water dipompa, kemudian diubah menjadi uap, memutar turbin dan menghasilkan listrik. Nah, kemudian listriknya dimanfaatkan. Ini potensi yang ada di Indonesia cukup banyak. Ini data tahun 2003 ya. Sekarang sudah mulai banyak dieksplor ya, seperti di Kamojang, Patoha, Dieng, dan juga beberapa tempat di Indonesia. Ini cukup banyak, ini akan membantu untuk meningkatkan bauran energi baru terbarukan. Ini adalah penggunaan bioenergi. Jadi bioenergi itu berasal dari biomass, dari makhluk hidup ya. Dapat menggunakan untuk menghasilkan energi, dia dapat dilakukan konversi secara termokimia ataupun konversi secara biologi, biokimia. Ini ada pembakaran, ada combustion, gasification, pyrolysis, kemudian ada digestion, fermentation, dan juga ada extraction. Ini yang menjadi dasar nanti kalau ada lihat di slide-slide selanjutnya ada biofuel, biodiesel, bioetanol, ini prinsipnya dari sini. bioenergi semua. Target rencana umum energi nasional ini 31% di tahun 2050 ini energi baru terbarukan, kemudian batu baranya dikurangi 24. Mestinya nanti mungkin bisa-bisa jadi 0 kan ditutupnya. Kemudian di sektor transportasi, jadi yang paling ini adalah ya merubah kebiasaan ya, merubah kebiasaan. Jadi apapun yang terkait dengan teknologi macam-macam itu adalah sebenarnya alat bantu saja. Yang utama adalah merubah. Jadi perubahan. Teknologi itu yang kedua. Yang pertama adalah cara pikir kita. Teknologi is the second. The first is our mind. We must change our mind. Our behavior itu yang paling penting. To mitigate the climate change. Jadi yang terakhir adalah improve ya. Improve dari efisiensi energi ataupun juga decarbonization teknologi in the transport sector. Ini sekarang ini ada low carbon emission vehicle. Namanya. Sekarang kan ditulis sih kendaraan-kendaraan itu minimum sekian standarnya kan untuk bahan bakarnya. Kemudian ini yang akan datang akan digunakan elektrifikasi untuk mobil. Kemudian good agriculture cultures, good agriculture practices yang terakhir adalah limbah-limbah yang berasal dari pertanian sedapat mungkin ini dimanfaatkan, dan juga penggunaan pupuk-pupuk secara yang fertilizer yang sintetik itu juga dikurangi ya. Mengapa kok dikurangi? Karena dalam prosesnya sintetik itu juga dia melepaskan karbon prosesnya. Makanya tadi saya katakan ada life cycle assessment, semua hasil dari produk kegiatan pasti ada karbon yang terlepas. Kemudian energy from waste, ini contoh dari ASEAN Agri di Riau kalau nggak salah ya. Maaf kalau salah di Sumatera ini limbah cair dari industri minyak kelapa sawit ini dimanfaatkan, ditangkap biogas. Nah ini dia metan itu yang dapat dimanfaatkan sebagai gas ataupun bentuk bahan bakar yang lain untuk co-firing macam-macam. Nah ini, sedangkan metan sendiri adalah gas rumah kaca, jadi sangat baik sekali. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Kuncoro, also for your very great presentation, and of course, your information open our eyes actually to what really happened in Indonesia. Okay, so for all of you who joining us this evening, if you have any questions to both of our speakers, please chat us in the chat box in this Zoom meeting, or you can also comment through all at America social media platform where you are watching us right now. And you don't have to be worried bisa ditulis dalam bahasa Indonesia. So later on we will help you to translate to our speakers. Okay, so we move on right now to our next session. We will have a discussion with both of our speakers. So we welcome back Dr. Buck, and together with Dr. Kuncoro with us here. And maybe just for a warm up, before we go to the audience questions. So for Dr. Buck, I would like to ask you, because it's really interesting before when you talk about the green, I think green tech, with all this technology, especially what Microsoft do. Anyway, so what do you think are maybe like in the US that already have all the tech company, let's say, that can help to reduce the emission?
Sorry, is the question what the tech companies can do to reduce emissions? Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
The challenging problem is that we really need to stop producing fossil fuels And so we're in an interesting situation where some of the world's richest companies used to be fossil fuel companies. Now we have these tech companies that actually are larger than most fossil fuel companies in terms of their market capitalization. So they're worth a lot more. So they have a lot of power in a sense. They have a lot of capital to invest in things. They don't necessarily always produce so many emissions themselves. There's definitely emissions that come from data centers. So we already see that, Google or Facebook would want to locate their data center where they keep all that data near a place that has clean energy, near a hydropower plant. So they can work to reduce their own emissions. In some ways, that's relatively easy if you're in the computing business compared to if you're an industrial company. So now their next step after they figure out how to use clean energy for their own processes is to say, okay, where can I invest all my money I've made from my stock or whatever? They have a lot of capital that they can put somewhere. And so they're investing in things like carbon removal, in other sorts of sectors with clean energy, transportation. So actually their role is almost more like a catalyst or an investor in some sense than it is just dealing with their own operations. And I think that's a very positive thing that can help start things off, but it won't take us to the end goal.
Okay, yeah, because in this era, in this pandemic era, where we all like doing everything from home. Yeah, we do work from home in many countries in the world, and then this is like really good time, yeah, for all the tech company to to grow, right? Because everybody will need their services, right? And then also then they will need to build maybe like a place or building or something for all the server that they need. So actually that's taking so much electricity, right? I mean, if maybe like in some countries, in some places, like maybe in the US, you already have the exchange, yeah, from the coal-based electricity to the renewable energy electricity. I think that's not a problem. But if like maybe like in Indonesia, which we still have more of our electricity is actually still coming from coal. So that's actually, it sounds like giving, it's really a big problem actually. So yeah, so I guess that can be something that we can also think about. So okay, so now maybe I will go to Dr. Kuncoro. I just want to know, so what do you think, as you mentioned before, in Indonesia, we actually really rich in the source of renewable energy, right? We have solar energy. We do also have wind, yeah. We have geothermal, we have the water and so on. But from your perspective and maybe your knowledge into the technology, which one that actually can be a priority for Indonesia if we want to do a massive, exchange for the renewable energy?
Okay. I think two things that we can find easily in Indonesia is solar energy. We will see almost over the year we get abundantly solar energy. We can optimize the use of solar energy by rooftop, solar cell and rooftop. I think it's maybe it's a little bit expensive in the beginning as the investment, but an expert from Jakarta said that the rooftop, the duration of life, it could be 20 or 30 years. So it's very interesting. And the second one, I think we have a lot of potential material for bioenergy. So, for example, I always think first waste from say, for example, from kelapa sawit, from oil palm. There is liquid waste, and this liquid waste contain a lot of organics, and it can be converted to energy, as I explained, as I described before, to biogas in Sumatra. In Sumatra, there are many projects coordinated by BPPT, by LIPI, and as a waste, and also a biomass non-food, biomass non-food that can have potential as a source of energy, microalgae, for example, and also several kinds of plantation. And also in Indonesia, there is also kebun nabati, ya. Kebun nabati, but for kebun nabati, it's there are sometimes little controversial because some of the plants can also use as food resource. So there's competition. So we can try to find the waste from biomass. Say, for example, from oil palm, and from say from a sawmill, then we can get the briquette, and also other waste from biomass. It's very interesting. I think this is the second, the two things that I think it's one relatively, I can say relatively abundant in Indonesia.
Yeah, I agree, Dr. Kuncoro. It is because well, maybe we already know from the news everywhere. Indonesia is also one of the like country with so much waste and it's not just maybe unorganic, but we also have so much organic waste, which we can actually do something with it, right? So to reuse or recycle into something. So I think that can also be an alternative, because I know that the palm oil, I guess, already become one of the main source for our electricity state-owned company.
Yes.
For the renewable energy, and also like the corn husk also in Sulawesi, I guess. So I think that can be a great idea. Okay, so maybe before we move on, we have one questions. So since we try to reduce or to change our lifestyle now with everything electrifying everything, we have the electric car and maybe like electric stove, everything. But this is I guess for Dr. Bak and also Dr. Kuncoro, maybe you can talk from the US perspective and then from the Indonesia perspective later on, since we campaign all of these things right now. But I'm just curious, so because when we want to produce this thing, it still need to make it, right? So there will be another factory, there will be maybe some place to mine, we need to mine maybe the nickel, the lithium, and so on. And then we also need transportation for it, right? To transport from one source to another one, to assembly and so on. So which one do you think that is we should actually do? I mean, like in global, yeah, with all the industry. So is it really? So do we need like we just need to make all the maybe those industry, those producer, all the transportation for all of those things, yeah. First to be green, or we just keep pushing people to do or to choose or to and to buy, changing their lifestyle, buying another things, which is, you know, it will have also, of course, to reduce the emission, yeah, with the electric car and so on. So which one do you think that we should actually do first?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, first is to electrify things so that the factory that's manufacturing this new stuff is running on clean electricity. I mean, beyond that, I think that there's also a global challenge in that, you know, there's 1 billion people in the world without access to electricity. There's 2 billion people who need more than they currently have access to. So it's not just a matter of swapping our devices in the US here for clean ones, it's also providing more electricity to people who don't have it. So it's clear that, you know, people in the US and some other countries need to figure out how to consume less. At the same time, we need to produce more energy so that people in the rest of the world can have access to it. And it's a big challenge, obviously, but I think that, you know, moving to clean energy, number one, then at least you're producing new things with the clean energy.
Okay. And what do you think, Dr. Kuncoro, maybe like in Indonesia?
Okay, in Indonesia, I think for me, it's important to give education to the people, because if the people aware about the environment, I think it will be easy. It will be easy. And for this ideal condition, I mean, there must be collaboration between government, family, and the environment. If these 3 pillars do it together, I think it will be easier. I think it will be easier to do all our plan to reduce greenhouse gases, to prevent more catastrophe that can will happen. So awareness is number one, but of course we must also do development with the low carbon development. It has been planned by Bappenas as a Ministerial of Development, I think, in Indonesia. And awareness is number one.
Okay, thank you so much. Yes, because we all want to have, you know, like a really green lifestyle, yeah. But you know, it's also safe for everybody, for everything, basically. Yeah, we don't need to have another maybe just a collateral damage because we just want to have a clean energy. Okay, so next we move to our questions from the audience. Thank you so much, yeah, for all of you that already sent us questions. We have so many questions. So first, I will read from Arif. Yeah, good evening, Dr. Bak and Dr. Kuncoro. I'm Arif, a student of Universitas Nasional in Bekasi, Indonesia. I have a questions for Dr. Bak. But firstly, thank you for your time and the presentation. It was amazing and really enlightened as a younger generation to what really we can do to achieve it. Yeah. Speaking of climate change, our first thought might be go to tree. And it reminds him about Team 3 initiated by YouTuber Mr. Beast and former NASA engineer Mark Rober, which aims to plant about 20 million trees by the year of 2020. It was a big effort and achievement by them, and yet I still think it wasn't enough to prevent the climate change from getting any worse. My question is, what really is preventing the government or us as a human being to do the real thing and make this planet healthy again? Maybe your opinion then, Dr. Butler.
I mean, this is in some ways a philosophical or a spiritual question, as much as it is an empirical one. I think that there's some amount of, capture of our democratic processes by industries or companies. The US it's not a perfect democracy. We're still working towards the country that we want to be and the democracy we aspire to be, even after a few hundred years. And so I think that sometimes certain industries or companies have more of an influence than the people. I think that's one part of it. I think another part of it is also just the education that Dr. Eko mentioned. A lot of people still aren't aware about what the stakes are, about what we can do to address this. So these sorts of programs like we're having today are really important for that.
Okay, thank you. So I hope that answering your question, yeah, Arif. Thank you for your question, by the way. Okay, and then we also have questions from, okay, let's see. From our YouTuber, yeah, who watching us via YouTube at America. This one from Nadia. Hello, Nadia. So Nadia wants to ask again, yeah, to Dr. Buck, talk about the urgency and time-sensitive situation of climate change. Some news outlets even say it's too late. Is there any deadlines as to when it will all be too late?
I mean, I think it's never too late. It would have been better to act in, 1992 or 2005 or 2015. Better to act today than tomorrow. The recent IPCC report indicated that we will reach this 1.5 degrees of warming in the 2030s. So, that will be coming. We should do as much as we can right away, but it's never too late.
Okay, it's never too late, Nadia. So what we can do it now, yeah, act now. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I guess now we will go to our Instagram followers, yeah, who also joining us this evening. Hello, Octavia Naif, yeah. Maybe this one could go to Dr. Kuncoro. Could you give us any suggestions how to introduce this topic to the students or improving the people awareness about this, since this is the crucial issue for humankind? Thank you.
Okay, I think it's very interesting how to insert this information to the education. I think now the knowledge about environment, awareness about environment is a must for everyone, everybody, even from the elementary school, junior high school, senior high school, and in the university. There is a course, a lesson about environment that must be taken. So I think we can insert it in the system of education. And the most, I think the most, it is difficult, but also not so difficult. We can join to the activity that show that we are aware about the environment. Say, for example, plantation of the tree, and also to take the debris, the plastic, from the river, from the sewerage in our on our complex in our neighborhood where we live. I think the example is this the example, because the most important is example. If everybody can do the standard thing, I mean standard thing about awareness, I think it will be a culture, and if it's a culture, it will be strong culture. I think it's really we can maybe we can have the same situation in the country like developed in United States of America or another developing country.
Okay, I agree with you, yeah, because I mean, we can actually just do everything that we can, maybe start from our home, yeah, just start from ourselves, from our home, from our environment, yeah, in our surrounding, because there is no act that is too small, actually, yeah. Everything doesn't matter how small it is, that will make something, actually, yeah, that can make a difference. Okay, so now I guess I have actually two questions, but it's a bit related, yeah. So I will just kind of give it to you, and then I think Dr. Buck and Dr. Kuncoro can answer as well. Yeah, this is more in general. So we have again Cahyadi in our YouTube, yeah, wants to ask. So how has this pandemic with the limited mobility affect our Earth climate condition? Yeah, and this is actually correlate as well with Maisa Maheswari questions. Yeah, what is the impact of Corona or the COVID-19 on the global clean energy factors? Yeah, so it's about the global clean energy factors and also the climate condition. Yeah, with this pandemic. So please, maybe Dr. Buck and Dr. Kuncoro, you can share your thoughts about this. Maybe Dr. Buck first?
Sure. I mean, there was a drop of emissions last year, slight drop, you could notice it, but then emissions came right back. So in the big picture, it didn't really make much of a difference. And actually, it shows in some ways how hard it will be to confront this problem without much deeper changes than just everybody stop moving around. It also had some impact on oil prices, which obviously went very low, even to negative for a minute, but they are back, you know, where they were or higher. I guess my main question is, you know, did the economic impacts from Corona impact our ability to invest in clean energy? I'm not sure what the answer of that is yet or will be. One positive thing is I do think it showed people that it's possible, you know, in the US context, it's possible for the government to spend a lot of money, trillions of dollars to confront a problem. So now people watched this with Corona and they say, well, why can't we spend the same amount of money for climate change, which is a very big, very long problem. So now there's a new mood around being able to mobilize resources to confront this challenge.
And for you, Dr. Kuncoro?
Okay, I think this pandemic situation, coronavirus 19, if you see from environment aspect, especially the quality of air, the quality of air in some big cities are better. Why? Because there are less mobility. And as we know, mobility in the big cities normally using many transport modal like cars in Indonesia and in developing country. But in the more advanced country, I think the use of mass transport is is good. So the quality of air is better. But now, pandemic, I think it's almost over. Maybe we hope, yeah. So the condition will be back as before or no, we don't know. We still don't know, because this is behavior. We really don't know. We really don't know. And I think with this pandemic situation, the energy we can say there is the decreased use of energy and the decrease of greenhouses gas emission. And it's also I think it's a good opportunity for us, for the government to do the program for clean energy.
Okay, thank you. Well, at least what we experienced, yeah, in Jakarta in the early pandemic, in the early to 2020 in Jakarta, we can breathe fresh again, yeah. Yeah, but yeah, and then it's just like a pause, yeah, like all humankind take a pause, and then we can see a little bit different, basically, yeah. But yeah, it's of course it's continuing, yeah. So okay, now again we have a question. Okay, this one is from Sergio Nicolas Arifin for Dr. Buck. He wants, I hope it's right, yeah, he wants to ask, is it okay to force future population to use electric cars instead of the massive community car lovers? It's a bit okay, what do you think, Dr. Buck?
I don't think that people will be forced exactly, but most manufacturers have said that they are going to produce electric cars. And in some places, like the state of California, but also other countries, they have said, okay, now these car manufacturers must produce, only electric cars. So I guess you still have the option to drive a very old car if you want. But I just want to say that driving electric cars is amazing. They accelerate so fast. You can go from 0 to 100 kilometers in just a few seconds. So I think that the car lovers will actually really enjoy some of these new cars on the market. They're really fun.
Okay, so yeah. So maybe one last questions, just briefly answer, yeah, from Dr. Buck and Dr. Kuncoro. This question from Mario Akbar Wilantoro. So what do you think, yeah, the impact happens with technology that can make climate change okay at this time? Yeah, so the technology that makes climate change. Maybe just briefly your thoughts about it. So we need to maybe forcing into the green energy or something like that. Maybe Dr. Buck?
I might not totally understand the question, but I think that, we have to build out this new technology. We also have to end old technology. But it can happen, and it helps if the new technology is cheaper. So here in New York State, we closed our last coal plant a year or two ago. And it wasn't only laws saying that they had to do that. It was also because the solar and the wind is just cheaper than coal. So these can work together, building the new and ending the old.
Okay, and for you, Dr. Kuncoro, maybe like in Indonesia, briefly?
In Indonesian language?
In Indonesia, like the case in Indonesia with the technology that make climate change.
Okay, I think technology has always two sides, yeah? Positive and negative. Positive is to make better our life, and the negative effect that must be reduced. So believe me that there is no really positive technology. No, always two sides. Say, for example, the use of many digital platform to study. There's also positive and also negative. Positive and good is very easy for us to have a conversation, but the negative, we have less social contact with another. Okay, that's one of the easiest example that I can give.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Bak and Dr. Kuncoro, for your fruitful discussion. It's really thoughtful and really, opened our mind. Yeah, maybe we can think about now, from now. And also, thank you for all audience that already warmed up our evening. Thank you at America for such great event. So let's act now. Yeah, start from everything that we can do today to care more and love our Earth, the only one place for us to live. Okay, so thank you so much for both of you, Dr. Bak, Dr. Kuncoro. I am Puji signing off. I'll see you next time. So back to you, Jasmine. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ibu Puji, for being our moderator this evening, and also for Ibu Hali and Pak Eko for being our speakers. I hope you all had an insightful session this evening. Now, earlier on in this event, I asked you guys a question, and the question was, true or false, coal is used for reusable energy. So is that fact true or false? That fact is actually false. Renewable energy is energy that is collected from renewable sources, which are naturally replenished, such as sunlight, wind, rain, tides, waves, and geothermal heat. So our winner for this evening is from YouTube. So shout out to Nadia Cahyadi for answering correctly. For those of you who would like to participate in our social media quiz next time, you can tune in from the beginning of the event because that's when we'll be sharing our question. Now, earlier in the event, I also shared with you that At America is having a giveaway as part of our 10th anniversary celebration and also celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month. We're inviting you guys to participate so you guys don't miss out on a chance to receive a pair of Apple AirPods. Now, how can you guys do that? You guys can go to the link at atam.tv/US Connected for more information on our giveaway. The deadline is until the end of this month, so please don't hesitate to the link. Now, for those of you who are wondering, how can you develop an awesome idea at an awesome place like At America? It's really easy. You guys can just go to our website at www.atamerica.org.id, select create a program, and go to collaborate with us. All proposals coming to us will be reviewed, and your event might be featured here soon. And while you guys are on our website, don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter so you guys get updates sent straight to your inbox. We won't spam you, we promise, just once a week. And also don't forget to follow us on our social media for fun content, event updates, and many more. I hope you have a good evening and see you at the next At America TV event. Bye-bye, everybody.